Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so excited. Welcome here in the den here at FOX5 Studios for Dry Heat with Mike Davis. I am joined right now by this dude. It's not even a triple threat. You gotta say quadruple threat. We gotta come up with all different things, from acting to music to karate. I think this guy even won like a state kickboxing tournament when he was like a youngster. And of course, he's a maven when it comes to the cheesesteak. He's from my hometown. He's a legend when it comes to Philadelphia. And now you can catch and get all this great goodness. You see this goodness right here? This cheesesteak right here? You can get that baby here at the Rio, Las Vegas. It's Tony Luke Jr. Tony Luke Jr., it's great to see you again, my man.
Mike, I am so excited that I got on a plane, which I hate to fly, for 5.5 hours knowing I was going to see you.
We had a lot of fun last time.
We had a great time.
It was two Italians and a Jew in a kitchen making cheesesteaks, and it's Tony Luke Jr. and Stevie Van Zandt from Bruce Springsteen and The Sopranos. That was a great day.
Well, it was a good day because I saw Stevie on camera. He was live, and I remember telling the person I was with, I said, "Can you tell Stevie I'm here?" And I remember him saying, "Look, if you want to meet Stevie, then you can wait." I'm like, "No, I wouldn't ask you to tell someone I'm here if I didn't know them." They're like, "Well, we'll get a message back to them." And then you guys walked in on this segment, which was amazing.
Well, I was interviewing him. He was doing a great thing in the community with kids and musical education. Yeah. And then he's like, "Let's go crash Tony's segment." So we went into the kitchen here at Fox 5 and we did a whole great thing celebrating National Cheesesteak Day, which we're doing right now. I mean, listen, I'm just going to tell everybody at home. Growing up, Cherry Hill, Philadelphia area, this was my cheesesteak. My dad would take me to South Philly right off the expressway. We'd be going to games. We'd be going to Delaware County, Delco, to go see my grandmother. And we'd always stop for Tony Luke's if I was being a good child and doing something right. Tell me this, before we get into all the great stuff, as our beloved Eagles won the Super Bowl, I'm pretty sure there was a viral video. Didn't they go to Tony Luke's, all the coaches before the season, like Vic Fangio, Nick Sirianni, Kellen Moore, I think they went to Tony Luke's to celebrate, and get to know each other prior to the season starting.
I think that might have been true. I just know that anytime the Eagles get into the playoffs, my movie resurfaces.
The one with Mark Wahlberg.
Yeah, and I know that I'm going to be the meme of the whole playoff things. So, I sit there because I'm a big guy now. I'm 290. But when I did Invincible, I was 400 pounds.
Were you?
I was 400 pounds. So to see that image of me in the green cape and the green outfit always kind of makes me cringe. But it's like, it's the thing. It's like,
well, you were like the wacky, crazy fan in Invincible, the story of Vince Papale, a great hero of Philadelphia and a legend for the Philadelphia Eagles. Mark Wahlberg played him. But let's talk about you. As I alluded to earlier in the show, you just do so many things, right? I was listening prior to the interview. You got a new song out called City Walk.
City Walk, yeah.
It's like a smooth jazz kind of record. You're playing piano, but you just told me you wrote the sax parts.
Well, I wrote the lines for the sax, and then the key line, and then Justin Bandelon wrote the melodic melody for the guitar, but the chords are all mine, and Justin played drums on that as well. But when I wrote City Walk, I wanted to let people feel what it's like to walk through a city at night, going through different streets and neighborhoods. So if you listen to this song, it kind of starts off like a little foreboding. It's like, like little, like you're a little sketchy.
Yeah.
But then it starts getting into different areas, and there's music, and then it kind of builds. And Ben Stocker played sax on that, and I gave him free will at the end, do what you want to do.
It's very reminiscent of walking through like a street in Philly, and you're on Sansom, you go to like maybe a crappier part of,
and then jazz part,
right? Yeah.
And what's funny is I wrote a lot of sad music, so I write a lot of music to try to touch people's soul. So people would listen to it, they'd be like, "Man, every time I need to go cry, I listen to some of your music." So one day I have a studio in my home, a little recording studio, and I'm like, I want to write something that I want to listen to.
Yeah.
So I wrote a song called Smooth Groove.
Okay.
And I'm like, you know what I don't hear anymore? I don't hear trumpet. I'm going to write a song for a trumpet.
Right.
So I write the song, the bass line, chords, I lay everything out, and now I play trumpet on the keyboard, and I'm riffing the lines, and I'm just going. So now I send it to a friend of mine who's a trumpet player. And I go, listen, he told me the greatest line ever. That's why I have to share it. So I go, I'm going to send you the song. I need you to put real trumpet on the song. I said, but I need you to play it note for note the way I wrote it. And I'll never forget. He said to me, he goes, Tony, you know fingers don't breathe, right? And then for a minute, I'm like, I don't understand. I'm like, oh, I get it. He thinks I'm doing like, and he has to take a breath.
Right. It can't replicate it exactly.
He's like, but then when I sent it to him, he's like, oh, no, you breathe. Like, I can breathe in between. Right. So we can. And then when I went to release it, a friend of mine who, is a 9-time Grammy winner, Joe Nicolo, he did the re-education of Lauryn Hill.
Oh, my God.
He did Billy Joel's River of Dreams. He worked with Bob Dylan.
Best.
He worked,
Okay, I don't know.
So I give him the track, and he's like my partner in the music, and I give him the track, and he literally says to me, what do you want me to do with this? And I'm like, well, we're going to release it. He's like, you won't get on one play. Like, this is not, like, no playlist will touch this. And I'm like, yeah, I know. I don't write music to get on a, like, I write what I feel. It's like, if one person hears it, then they love, and he goes, I'll release it, but, don't get your, and I remember about 3 days ago, I'm like, I think we got 5,000 streams in one day. And then I looked, and we were on like 60 playlists, then 300 playlists, then 1,900 playlists, then 2,900 playlists. And then he came back to me. He's like, write another song like that. Write more music like that.
Right.
And then I wrote Transcendental Groove.
So there's a need for a lot of that kind of smooth jazz kind of stuff.
Well, it's kind of, I don't want to say, please forgive me who's listening. I do not mean this in a derogatory way. I'm just speaking as a musician. I feel like there's a need for real instrument music.
Yeah, music.
Like that. And I'm not saying that the stuff that's out now is not music. It is absolutely music. But I mean to go back to real guitar players playing, and drummers playing, and saxophone players and trumpet.
100%.
And just that real feel of.
But and it doesn't even have to be overproduced because I was watching you do Forever in a Day, like this.
That's an
acoustic unplugged, which I love the Jim Croce stuff. Like I love very unplugged kind of stuff, and it's just, it's so simple. You're like in a bar basically, and it's you just singing with a microphone and a dude playing acoustic guitar, and it sounds so lovely.
Now, actually, that dude playing guitar is a gentleman named Trevor Gordon Hall.
Yeah,
Trevor Gordon Hall is rated in the top 30 greatest acoustic guitar players in the world.
Wow.
And he was like, I love this song.
How do you even get that? How do you even get that acknowledgement? That sounds amazing.
And he's playing.
Yeah, he's really talented.
He's phenomenal.
But, and then there's other stuff. Forever, One More Night was this song I was watching you play piano. So listen, there's so much to your story. I want to backtrack a little bit to the cheesesteak stuff then, because we got to talk a little bit about, how you honor the memory of your son, all the beautiful stuff you do for addiction work. And, but you're so multifaceted, from movies to music, all this stuff. But 1992 was great for two reasons, right? Mike Davis was born.
That was the greatest reason.
He was born at Jefferson Hospital in Philadelphia. It was, I think it might have been a snowy day. It was February 8th, I think.
Oh, yeah, well, probably.
It probably was. But more importantly than me and my birth, and shout out to Lynn and Stephen Davis, Tony Luke's started. This is when
February 3rd, 1992.
So it's basically 33 years ago. Tony Luke starts. You start with your dad and your brother. But here's the fascinating thing, and I don't even think I even asked you this and how long I know you. Cheesesteaks were not really an integral part of the menu, actually.
It wasn't on the menu.
That's crazy.
It was not on the menu.
How is that possible?
The original menu was roast beef, roast pork, chicken cutlets, Italian sandwiches. Then people would come to the window. Now, remember, we were out of the way. Like, there was no business where we were.
Right.
People thought that we were crazy opening up out of the way of everything.
Right.
But we believed that if the food was good, people would come.
And this is that South Philly, off the expressway
right, it was on
location.
Oregon Avenue, yeah.
And so South Philly, like, it's not like Chicky and Pete's wasn't there, Celebrays, Pizza, like all that stuff.
Was further.
It was further down.
And Pat's and Gino's was on 9th
Right.
Street, and Jim's was on South Street. So, and it was always that, you know, Pat's, Gino's, and Jim's was the triad that everyone was trying to break. They were like the gods of cheesesteak. So when we opened, people would come and go, no cheesesteak, no cheesesteak, no cheesesteak. And I thought, you know, my father was like, look, if we're going to do this, then we have to do it the best. And the best, again, the best that we can do. You'll never hear me say, even when we were at our peak, that we were the best cheesesteak. I never respected anyone that said, I make the best cheesesteak. I think it's arrogant. I think that it's you know, everyone's taste buds are different. What you love, she may not like, or he may not like.
Right.
So you can say, I make the best cheesesteak that I can make, like I do the best that I can do. But every time you say I'm the best at something, I think that that's just.
And you know what? If I can play psychiatrist for a second, I think the reason why that's your approach, and that's not every chef, that's not every person. You're unique in that. But I think you're a true artist at heart, and that's why you feel that way, because you look at making cheesesteaks like this, which it's very difficult for me to not just gorge and just go in on that right now. But I'll go to town in a few moments. But you attack it and treat it like an artist. It's like music, right? Who's to say that Elton John is better than Billy Joel? It's preferential to taste.
And,
you know,
and it's funny you bring this two up because I love them both.
So I think there's a cohesiveness
and
there.
There's the well, it's so weird that you say that because one of the greatest compliments I think I ever got, and I will embarrass Joe Nicolo, who I respect tremendous. I mean, he is brilliant.
I mean, if you're working with Lauryn Hill and Billy Joel.
Well, he was, he was, and Bob Dylan. I mean,
of course.
So he's just a brilliant engineer, brilliant mixer, producer. And he said to me once, he said, you know, you're not a great singer. And I said, okay. He goes, you're more like a stylist. And I'm like, all right. And then we would go on, and then I wrote and did all these music. And he said, you know what? You're not a stylist. You're not a great performer. You're not a great singer. You're a great artist.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, because that's the greatest compliment I can give you.
Yeah.
He said, because there's great performers, there's great singers, and then there's great artists.
Yeah. No, you're an artist.
And there's a difference, he said, which is, I think, why I was always attracted to food, because cooking is an art form.
Yeah.
It's a way to express creativity.
100%.
And just, you know, I said I love R&D. I love doing research and development with food. And I love that. And I love the music. And film is another expression of that art.
And you do that through, we've seen it with the nail, we've seen it, but even in the marketing and the approach you took to Tony Luke's. And listen, I mean, you grew up in Philly, you know, like, tell us that triad to break into the business. It's part of it, I think, is that you guys felt like the cheesesteak thing was probably overdone a little bit and there wasn't so much room to make an impression with it. But you guys add it to the menu, and I think a lot of it is like, yes, a lot of things are about taste. I always thought the way that, for some reason, I always felt your bread, and the way that the bread soaked up the meat and the cheese and the onions tasted better than Pat's and Gino's substantially. Like, that was the first thing that was like, if we're just talking taste, I love Coltrane. Some people, like, Cannonball Adderley. I like both, but I prefer Coltrane. When I tasted Tony Luke's for the first time, there was something about the bread and how it had a little bit more of a crunch, and it still kept the food better than stuff. So to me, I always felt the bread and the butter component, something going on there, tasted better.
They were using like soft bread,
right?
And we went to that hard, crusty Italian.
And I just felt that was, for me, that's why I liked it better, and that was an obvious thing, and that became why it was my favorite. But I think it's all, it's artistry and bringing different things into the mix. So tell us a little bit more about that story. I want to know how that happened when you first bring the cheesesteak to the menu, because I think you're known you're Tony Luke Jr. Like, you're the guy known for cheesesteaks. So tell us how that wasn't on the menu, and then the decision to finally put it on the menu when people keep asking for it.
Well, from a marketing point of view.
Yeah.
Okay, so my field was always the marketing side, because the entertainment field was always my wheelhouse. So I remember saying, you can't compete with Pat's Geno's and like, you can't compete on that stage. So the choice that I took, which was very controversial at the time, was I went to, and people that are my age or older will remember something called Prism, which was a cable company.
Okay.
One of the very first cable companies in Philadelphia. And they would do, your cable commercials. And I remember going in and I said, look, we want to do commercials for the store. And then they came in, they brought a producer, and they were like, well, we're going to tell. I'm like, no, we're not showing any food. And they were like, what do you mean? I'm like, I want people to think about Tony Luke's when they're not hungry. So they're like, yeah, but you're a sandwich shop. We have to take pictures of you on the grill. No, we're not. No grill, no pictures. None of that. And I remember they were very upset. And I said, no, we're going to do sketches. I have one sketch of me on a road crew in prison, and I break out of the road crew because there's a Tony Luke's there, and I escape the prison. I grab a sandwich. I eat it. The cops come. And they're like, this is vaudevillian. Like, it's stupid.
It's like Charlie Chaplin.
Then I did Forrest Luke, which was a spinoff of Forrest Gump, sitting there. And it was like, and then what happened was people loved them or they hated them. But when they were at work, they'd be going, did you see that dumbest? Who is Tony Luke's, and what was that even about? Like, why is there some guy in there talking like Forrest Gump? Why did they run? So now you're the talk of everyone, and then they go, I think they do sandwiches. So once that name was in your head, when you got hungry, you went.
Yeah.
So I think that the marketing of that, the food has to be good. So the food was good, but to sell it, I had people going, I need to see who this crazy individual is, and try one of these sandwiches. And then I remember we were in the middle of nowhere. So, but got a little bit busier.
Right.
And then busier and busier and busier. And then Philadelphia Magazine voted us the best cheesesteak and the best roast pork one year. And then business kind of quadrupled. And then Gourmet Magazine, back then, voted Tony Luke's roast pork the best roast pork in the world.
Really?
They went to Italy, they went to Spain, they went to Germany, they went to all these places and tasted pork sandwiches, and they voted us, Gourmet Magazine, the best roast pork sandwich.
Wow.
And then people were coming up in limos, and they're like, you know that Gourmet Magazine just voted you? They're like, no, I have no idea. And I do remember when I forgot which magazine, it was another big magazine, voted the two best restaurants, and there were three. Can't remember the third, so please forgive me. But I remember the other one because I knew him. And so they said Tony Luke's and Lebec Finn.
Wow. Which was a very famous restaurant.
And it's
for
very
years.
French, and it's very...
Now it's Vetri Cucina.
So it's like, I remember thinking that he's losing his... and like throwing pots... Going, I'm a French cook.
But the fact that you were in that category is a big deal, and especially for Philadelphians to know, like, Lebec Finn was like,
was the place.
Right. It's not like New York or Chicago. I mean, Philly's a little bit smaller of a city than some of those places. So to be in that category is a major deal. But I think there was something along with your marketing as well. And just there was a coolness associated with if you're Team Tony Luke. Like, even before I met you, that's why I was so giddy when I first met you. I was like, it meant so much to me, and still means a lot. But I just, like, the first time, it was just like, because I just remember there was a pridefulness that I always remember that was associated just with people who said, like, Tony Luke is where I want my cheesesteak. There was something about that. And then it went into the ballpark, and then it just started, and it just kept growing.
But I think that came from my father. He always instilled in us that if you wouldn't eat it, don't sell it.
Right.
And that you have to, the one thing he really taught me was they don't have to come to your window and order a cheesesteak. they can order it anywhere in the city. So when they walk up and they order a cheesesteak, you need to be unbelievably grateful and appreciative that they're in that line. Even when we were at our peak, where the line was, 3 blocks long, if someone had a complaint, I was on it. Like, it wasn't like, you got a complaint, go somewhere.
No, you guys had a different approach to service than Geno's and Pat's, definitely.
Well, I mean, look.
I think so, definitely. Because you know how people always...
It's an apple and orange.
But people always do the whole shtick with, you have to order it this way and that thing and blah, blah, blah.
But it worked back then. Like, that was the thing. For us, we took names. We were the first ever to take someone's name because we wanted to get to know someone personally. And... I think it was the perfect storm for us because you had my dad, who was an unbelievable hard worker. He was a great cook. He taught me how to cook. My brother was a phenomenal he worked and he got into
Nicholas?
Nick, and he worked and he did it. And then you had me, who wasn't the guy on the grill, but I'm the guy that's out there at radio stations and TV stations and marketing and promoting, because you can have the greatest product in the world, but if no one knows it's there, it doesn't matter. I mean, eventually they'll find it, but to go from 0 to 100, which we did in that short period of time, I would dress up as an ostrich and run around the city giving out ostrich steaks when we were doing ostrich steaks.
You did fun
so
stuff.
I think it was the perfect team. If it was just me by myself, it wouldn't have never worked.
And it's so weird because I want to express to people at home, the location is so funky, but you guys really made it so warm. Because I remember I could very vividly remember sitting down on those kind of lawn.
Under 95 was right there,
and you're sitting at those kind of park tables, and then you have
there were the wooden park tables,
and you'll have a picture of Tony Danza up, you'll have a picture of Larry Boa or something, and you're just sitting there and you unwrap your cheesesteak, and it's just such a beautiful experience. But it's amazing, actually. And here's what's crazy is now, why Vegas? Because Vetri brought a lot of his stuff here too. Mark Vetri's a great guy. His partner, Jeff Benjamin. They have Fiorella here. They have Kachina here. They have Osteria. Now even Solomonov is bringing Federal Donuts. So Philly and Vegas are starting to sync up. But why does, Tony Luke's, you're so prideful about the ingredients coming from your dad, something that you would eat. How do you keep the food great here in Vegas when you're in Philly? And how do you... it's a great way to expand, but tell us about the nature of that and how you made sure, listen, if we're expanding to the Rio Las Vegas, we got to make sure it really is the taste of South Philly in Las Vegas.
Well, here's the problem we run into, and I give Rio a lot of credit, but all of the credit goes to John Moser from MBB Management and David Wax. I mean, John, runs this company and he loves the company, and David, David loves the brand. The problem is, look, I'm going to be honest with you. I don't pull punches. I'm not here 24/7.
Right.
Will things slip through the cracks? Sometimes they do. It's like we just had this conversation 2 minutes ago with the guy that's running the Rio food court, and I was like, it's imperative to me that there needs to be not a general manager. There needs to be one specific manager just for the Tony Luke's stand, because Tony Luke's was not built just on the quality of the sandwich. It was built on the idea of customer service. It was built on the idea that the manager's eyes, if you see me in a store, this is literally what I look like. I'm going to look at the camera. Here's me in a store. Watch.
Right.
Those onions got to come off.
Right.
Steaks got to go wrap it up. Yeah, get it out. It's on too long. Yeah, flip the cheese. Get it right. You need that level of detail. You need a manager and if a guy's like, yo, dude, I've been here, 30 minutes.
Right.
You guys are behind.
Detail oriented.
I'm so sorry. You know what? You want a soda? You know what? Make another sandwich. Give it to him with his sandwich. I'm not going to. It's that detail that we have seen for some reason we've seemed to have lost that.
But I think younger generations are losing that, and and you can't, and that's just part of the South Philly culture in some of those places. I remember, like, I think there was a Tony Luke's that even expanded to like the Moorestown area in New Jersey near like a bowling alley.
It was in a bowling alley.
It was like in a bowling alley, and I remember going there, and it wasn't the same as going to like. And I was like, okay, it's Tony Luke's, but I could just tell it wasn't the same customer service.
So I'm going to give a little tip to people that
give us a tip.
Want a franchise.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you it from the Tony Luke's, oh my God, I can't believe I made all these mistakes, playbook.
Okay.
If you're going to franchise, there's certain things that you need.
Let me take notes.
You need to either own the building.
Okay.
Or you need to own the lease.
Okay.
Because see, what winds up happening is franchisees will come in, and I don't know why they do this, but they'll buy a brand that they believe is successful, and then they want to change it.
Okay.
Which makes no sense to me. So do the playbook. But then what they wind up doing is they'll do it. They'll get all the publicity that you're doing. They'll build up a rep, and then they want to get rid of you because now they have the audience. And they really don't have a stake in it other than the money that they put up. But all they got to do is switch to something else. But when you own the lease or you own the building, if they're not up to code doing what needs to be done, they're out of business. Like, you're not going to stay here.
You're more vested.
Sell your value because if you're not doing it correctly, you just invested all this money, I'm going to kick you out.
Yeah.
And that money's bye-bye now, and put someone else in.
What if I want to build a franchise in my apartment? In my 1-bedroom apartment, just for me. I don't want to make money. I just want to be able to eat Tony Luke's.
But the problem is, if you have a 1-bedroom, you'll need a 3-bedroom because you'll get so big that you'll have to expand the 1-bedroom. You'll be your favorite customer.
Exactly.
So, which is a downside of being a cook or a chef, which is why I always battle with weight. It's like some people go, I can really go for like, a cacio de pepe, right? And I'm like, well, I can cook. So for me, it's horrible. Other people go, well, I can't get out to a restaurant. I'll cook cacio de pepe.
See, that's amazing.
Right now.
Honestly, I can't imagine, like, you're just, I mean, from a dating perspective, I mean, you just, like, you can sing, you can cook, you're fascinating, you can beat the crap out of somebody. Like,
well,
I mean,
not now. I'm 63 years old.
Dude,
if I don't beat you up in the first 5 seconds, you won the fight.
Dude, you should see these old boxing photos of you. Oh, my God, man. It's like...
I won 3 state titles when I was a kid, and then when I was 40... I won the Tough Man Championship.
It's so crazy, and that's why you got to check the nail if you haven't seen.
I'm very proud of that.
It's very cool. Tony Danza. It's a very good story and all that
Ray
stuff.
Boom Boom Mancini's in it.
It's a lot.
William Forsythe.
It's cool, yeah. You come out of prison. It's a cool thing, but yeah. So I mean, listen, there's so much. We could talk all day long. I want to dive into this cheesesteak, but okay. So here's what we learned. We learned cheesesteaks were not originally on the menu.
Nope. 6 months after we opened.
Crazy. And then right off the bat, it was a hit.
Yes.
Crazy. And now if you had to tell us, I don't want you to give away trade secrets, but what do you think?
I'm happy to give away trade secrets.
What would you say? I think it was the bread, the butter, and how it holds everything. You tell me, what is it about the Tony Luke cheesesteak that differs from all these places? Because now I hear a lot of people love Angelo's. That's like the big one.
Angelo is now the undisputed heavyweight champion of cheesesteaks in Philadelphia.
Really?
See, everyone has their time.
Yeah.
Pat's had their time. Gino's had their time. Tony Luke's has their time. Like, when I say their time, Pat's and Gino's are still incredibly popular. Tony Luke's is still incredibly popular. Not that we faded away, but, there's a new kid on the block.
Right.
And Angelo does it right, and he does it great, and it's a great cheesesteak. And now, like, Tony Luke's at one point that was it.
Yeah.
Gino's was it. Pat's was it. It's Angelo's now is it. Everyone is you know what they're doing now, which is kind of cool? They're calling it the old school cheesesteak and the new school cheesesteak. So Angelo is part of the new school cheesesteak with but we bake bread too, but no one else did prior to us. But Angelo breaks them, and he uses Cooper Sharp cheese. And he puts a ton of meat, and it's on a seeded roll, not a plain roll. So he kind of he ushered in that new era of the new type of cheesesteak, which is why I've been fighting now, and I finally got it through, that we should offer Cooper Sharp at every location because it is the number one cheese now.
Cooper Sharp
for cheesesteak. So we do that, but I think the secret with us was We made every sandwich to order.
Yeah.
And we cooked every cheesesteak on a low temperature. So where you would stop at a cheesesteak place and get a sandwich in 3 minutes, you would wait 8-9 minutes.
Yeah,
So people,
yeah.
because thick steak, you cook high heat. So thin steak dries up. So you keep it on a low temperature, and then you'll notice all that juice, that's not all that juice comes out. Then the other thing we does, we didn't melt the cheese on top. We put the cheese on top. Now remember, there's all this juice from the steak, but the temperature isn't super hot.
Interesting.
Then we flip the cheese on the bottom of the grill, so all of that juice gets incorporated into the cheese, and then the cheese gets and all those flavors. And we never salted the steak until it was absolutely ready to come off the grill. Because if you just throw salt on raw steak,
right,
you're going to dry it out completely because it's so thin. So we salt it right before it comes off, and then we reach under, because now the cheese is loose as can be, and you smear it on, and everything's incorporated, and the bread is baked every hour, hour and a half, so it's crispy and it's fresh. That's what I think that we did different that made us stand out.
Those details
from a lot of the other
Those
places.
details are big, especially you got to realize, and that's why I never knew that, because you would go to the Pat's and Geno's. You're like, by the time you're doing your credit card and getting it back, you already got the sandwich in your hand. Where at Tony Luke's, you'd sit
to wait,
I would sit with my dad on those park bench seating thing, and then Mike, and then you come get your thing. So it takes a little bit longer, but you got to realize when it's not constructed in the manner with those details, the bread gets soggy. It's like how people, when they order DoorDash or Uber Eats now, and the food, it's like doesn't even taste the same way. You'd get that Pat's Geno's cheesesteak, and then you got to eat that in 4 minutes.
Well, I think that DoorDash and all Uber Eats and Grubhub and all these places are great because people don't want to go anywhere anymore. But I don't care how great your food is.
Yeah.
When it is sitting in a container for 30 minutes getting delivered to your house, there is no way on God's earth that's going to taste the same way as it does when you're there. And I think that that's the problem. We have gotten so used to mediocre food.
Well, because everything, it's like social media. It's like everybody we just want, it's more about fast rather than quality, and that's why I think for this show, we're going to chop this up so people can listen to multiple little 45-second clips. And then some people are going to say, hey, I want to listen to these two guys hang and talk for 40 minutes. And, so I think you got to meet your customers where they want to be met. You got to offer both things. So that's why I like this. I think it's like to have a long form conversation. It's like the same way that you want to bring back, instruments and having that musical quality, that musicality to music. I think long form conversations, getting to learn things, it's a special thing and it means a lot. But real quickly, before we let you go. So
I don't want to go.
I know we can. I want to talk to you all day long. My producer has to leave in a few minutes for a meeting. But let's talk about this because you have, beyond just being a great guy, you have such a beautiful heart because you give a lot of your time and energy, not only expression through music, but to addiction and that journey. And this month, I know it's a hard month for you. You were telling me. Tell us a little bit about your son and the way that you're really giving back through a lot of pain.
Well, my son died March 27th, 2017 of an overdose. And I understood what he was going through, which I'm glad he didn't have to die for me to understand it. But I've always been fighting the stigma that it's a choice, and it's really not. People are numbing themselves because a lot of that has to do with trauma and mental health issues. A lot of trauma that these people go through, and instead of going through it, which is very difficult, they kind of numb around it. And every family is affected by it. So I tried to fight this stigma of don't be ashamed if your loved one is suffering or they've passed away. That's someone's daughter or son or husband, wife, partner, whatever. Like that, these are human beings that are struggling, that need help. So I made it my mission through the music, because what kept me alive was music. It kept me from ending my life, because when you lose a child, there's no possible, you can't describe it. It never goes away. It never gets any better. You manage it better. You have maybe, more good days than you do bad days, but you absolutely have bad days. There's times something will hit me and I'll just break down and I'll start crying. But you have to let people understand that we're all human and we're all struggling with one kind of addiction or another. We're all addicted to something.
Yeah.
We're all, mine is food. I don't drink. I don't use drugs. When my son died, I put 135 pounds on, and I've been struggling to take it off for 8 years. So my go-to is carbs. So what I try to do is I use music as therapy, because you may not want to speak to me. You may be struggling with something, some kind of trauma that you're just embarrassed or you feel you don't want to share it. But if I get you to draw something, or if I get you to write a poem, or you do a rap, or you write a piece of music, I don't know why, but you have the ability to separate yourself from that. And it's like, this is what I'm going through, but that's not really me. It is you, but you're able to put it on paper or in a song, because you feel like I'm not exposing myself, but you are. Like, you can get more out of a drawing from someone and know how they feel.
It's healing.
Yeah, and then I did the whole course. I'm a certified grief specialist. I'm a certified recovery specialist. I do the all recovery meetings. I do the music therapy, which really helps. We do art therapy and clay and then making stuff. And it's just a way to let people know that they are not alone. The other thing I've been fighting, and I know we're short on time, but I want to get this in.
Yeah.
I'm going to get a lot of backlash from the recovery community. I don't care. Okay. I am never a fan of someone that goes, well, I was 9 years in recovery.
Oh.
I slipped 3 months ago, so I have 3 months in recovery. You do not have 3 months of recovery. You've got over 9 years of recovery. I don't like the idea of making someone think that everything they did for 9 years has no value now because you slipped, okay? You slipped.
Right.
And now you have to feel like I'm at one again, because there's another psychological thing that's going on there going, well, I wasted 9 years. You know what? I don't care now. I'm back. But if you tell people, no, you got 9 years, you slipped. It's okay. You slipped. You didn't lose those 9 years. Okay? You didn't lose them. You had a fall. You tripped. You fell. You're back. But when you give the impression that you've erased those 9 years, you give people that doom, like, what did I do? So I don't believe. And the other thing I can't stand, and I fight all the time in recovery, is I don't hate when people say it, because people can say what they want, but I don't like the word clean, because the word clean to me means dirty.
Right.
So if you're clean, that means you were dirty. You're either well or unwell.
Right.
And I tell people that. They go, well, I've been clean for, well, why? Were you dirty? Like,
it's a negative connotation.
It's a negative connotation. You were unwell. Now you're well.
Yeah.
And, when we have our meetings, it's like we actually use Vegas as a term. It's like, in these meetings, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Like, we want people to be comfortable to say whatever you want to say, because there's no there's no judgment here. Who am I to judge? Yeah. And there's people that are really struggling. What's great about the All Recovery meeting is there's parents that have children in recovery or in active addiction or have lost someone. And then there's people in recovery. Those people never really get to understand what their loved ones are going through. And their loved ones never really understand what the person who's struggling with addiction.
To see both sides of the coin.
It gives you both sides of, it's almost like, we had this discussion about hope, and they were like, well, you have to have hope. And I said, the only time that hope works is when you understand that the flip side of that coin is acceptance. See, when all you have is hope, but you don't have acceptance, hope can be a very dangerous, dangerous thing. Because if it doesn't work out the way you want it to work out, it will crush you. But when you have hope, but you also mix it with acceptance, it's your way of saying, this is what I hope to do. This is the way I hope it comes out. But if it doesn't, I am prepared to accept what does come out and move from there. I think those things need to go hand in hand. There's stages, like there's stages of grief. If you said to me, Tony, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? I want to work in the recovery field. I want to talk to people. I talk to kids who want to commit suicide. Now, I'm not a licensed therapist. So when I speak to people, I go, look, I could be a life coach, but I'm not a licensed therapist. So you have to be okay with me talking, to you, because I'm just giving you my life experience. But if I could do that and do the music and make a difference, I always say there's two banks, There's the bank account you have here and the bank account you have when you leave here. I don't care if this bank account has 5 cents in it. That bank account I want overflowed. Because what's the purpose of living a life if it's not a life of service of some kind? If it's always just about you, if it's always about just making the money, getting over, buying the cars, doing this, then is it really, I mean, what did you do other than be self-serving? I mean, a life should be built on a life of service. I mean, that's what I believe. And my son's death, as traumatic and horrible and tragic as it was, it opened up a pathway for me to maybe help another parent never, ever know what it's like to bury a child.
Well, you've lived a life of service, from beautiful food to music. You're serving in so many different ways, and now through addiction and helping so many families. And I everything you said, I have nothing to add. I think, acceptance and that side of it. And I think it's such a, it sounds so unique and fresh of an idea, but yes, you never hear when people, have that slip up moment that people talk about. You never hear like, oh, I'm back to 2 months now, but that there are 9 years of hard work there, and that you can build on that, and you can't throw that away. So there's so much we learned here. The great Tony Luke Jr. I can't wait to have you back here again.
You are way too kind.
You're the best. It's so much fun talking to you. I could talk to you for years. Listen, you got to go to Rio, Las Vegas. Check out Tony Luke's. It's the place to get a cheesesteak here in Las Vegas, 100%. And if you go back home, where I'm from, where Tony's from, you got to go check out Tony Luke's as well in South Philly. Real quickly, for people at home, where can they go for the addiction and just all that kind of stuff?
So we have a foundation called soundmindnetwork.org.
Okay.
We put on concerts. We work with the Bacon Brothers and other artists. And then we put on concerts. And Joe DiGiacomo, who is actually in the studio today, is one of the founding members of this with Joe Nicolo.
Okay.
And we raise money to support this all recovery meeting, to support the music therapy. So we use music to raise money. That's why I'm going to do a shameless plug, but I'll explain why. But if you're on Spotify, please go to Tony Luke Jr., follow the music, because I don't take any of that money. You don't make any money on Spotify to begin with.
Yeah.
But whatever little money I make, and as we build the audience, that money doesn't go in my pocket. That money goes to help families that need therapy, that need music therapy. So
listen to all that stuff, and it's Apple Music too. For all you
it's
Apple,
on every stream.
It's everywhere. I'm an Apple Music guy. The new song City Walk, you got to listen to that. I'm Forever in a Day. That's my thing. Go check that out on YouTube as well. That's on all the streaming services as well. The great Tony Luke Jr. This is Dry Heat with Mike Davis. We'll see you next time here in the Den at FOX5 Studios. Great seeing you, my man. I'm going to dive into this cheesesteak now, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see you next time here on Dry Heat.